All right. I've got 7 o'clock. Let's see. We'll give it another minute or so here. All right. Let me see. I've got one question, and let me close my door, and we'll get started. Doctor, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right. Let me make sure we are recording. All right. Let me close my door, and we'll get started. I won't try to keep you all night. Here we go. All right, let's get started. Welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is an interviewing session. The purpose of this session is to prepare you for interviews to be an assistant principal. So I'm going to dive right in. There are 4 types of interviews that you will probably go through in order to get a job. And there are 4 distinct types of interviews. They have different purposes. And if you know that, you will be much more prepared to deal with what you will face in those interviews. So the first type of interview is the applicant pool interview. Generally, that's in larger districts where they have literally dozens of applicants, and they don't have the time or the money to do background checks, the fingerprinting, all the things, the medical, the things that it takes to vet all the candidates. And so they need to find some way to get you down to a more manageable number and get you in the pool. And so many times these are somewhat impersonal. They're more test oriented. There's right answers and wrong answers. And the first of these is back to the Strength Finder book that you have in 605. Somebody's buzzing in. All right, so I'm going to need to, okay. Let me get this. I'm going to mute everybody. Everybody should be muted now. Okay, thank you. All right, so Gallup is the corporation, and everybody knows who the Gallup polls are. They created a instrument to help school districts sort through administrative candidates. It's called Principal Perceiver. I went through it a long time ago. It takes a year, and it's more than just interviewing, it's perceiving. There's variations of this. That's one of the reasons why we have you work in the Strength Finder book to know what the different types of strengths are and what the categories are, and you will have some notion of how to answer those questions. Now, if you go through the themes for this match up with the themes that you have in your Strength Finder book. But if they ask you questions, now I can't show you this, it's all copyrighted, but if you go through a perceiver or an interview type in the initial opening round for an applicant pool, they're going to ask you things like, do you like to run meetings? And of course, the answer is yes. And if on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective you are, you're a 10. Would you say you're a highly disciplined person? Of course, the answer is yes. They'll ask you things like that are fairly simple. They'll ask them in sets of 12. Now, there's some landmine questions in each of these sections that you can't get wrong. If you do, they'll end it at the end of that section. You got to score 44 out of 60 to go on. They won't tell you this many times, but they'll ask you these questions. So make sure that you're very forceful in your answers, and you're sure. Don't equivocate. Don't answer a question, answer that question with another one. Make sure that you know that you feel confident in your answer. So the landmine question, as I read for you in the first set of easy questions, is, would you say you're a highly disciplined person? Nobody wants to hire an administrator that's not disciplined, that won't show up on time, that won't run things and make sure that they follow all the rules and policies of the district. One of the things they're trying to do when they're looking to hire you as an assistant principal, can they project you as a principal as somebody that we can turn the keys over to? Or will you be like Barney when Andy went to Raleigh and hired the town drunk and give Gomer a gun? Will you do something dumb like that and undisciplined? Will you let school out early before the buses are on the lot? Will you do something in that way? So if you're not a disciplined person, they're not going to be interesting. It's the same thing. Are you always on time? And the answer is yes. If you're in the school business, we run the school by a bell. We can't have administrators that don't show up on time. So if they ask you, are you always on time? The answer is yes. No equivocation. Yes, I'm always early. And so the landmine question here is, do you want your teachers to know that they can call you anytime? And the answer, of course, is yes. That's that one you got to be clear on. If you're not approachable, they don't want to hire you. You've got to be disciplined, on time, and be there so people can approach you and be a problem solver, be a servant leader, and get things done. So if they ask you, would you want your teachers to know if they could call you anytime, night or day? The answer, of course, is yes. All right. All right. All right. The next question that they would ask, that would be a a landmine question. Are there any beliefs about which you have no intention of ever changing your mind? And the answer, of course, is yes. There's certain things that are endemic in you and your character, your dispositional behaviors. And so they have to believe that you have a guiding principle to you, or they're not going to hire you. And so here's the one that is the one that I get the most debate about, and that people debate me on from time to time. But this is the most important question you'll be asked in that first round. If the pay were exactly the same, would you prefer to be a teacher or an assistant principal? If the pay were exactly the same. And the answer, of course, is an administrator. Please remember, you are interviewing to change jobs. You're changing careers. You're going from working with children to working with adults. If you say, man, I'd stay in the classroom the rest of my life if the pay were the same, then they'll let you, because that's what you do. They're looking for somebody who's ready to make a different career. So that one is the one. If you get that one wrong, you got no chance. You can debate, or you think, well, you want people who won't work with kids. You're not going to be working with kids from now on. You're going to be working with adults. You're going to be supervising them. And so when they ask you that question, whether it's directly or in an indirect way, you're looking to affect children's lives through working with adults. So that's a biggie. We've already done, are you an on-time person? That was the one there. And then the last one, are you a person who expects to be an example? And the answer better be yes. You have to be, people have to look up to you. You have to be exemplar. You have to be a transformational leader and be able to inspire and motivate people. If they can't look up to you, then there's not much chance that they're going to follow you. The first tenet of leadership is followership. You have to be an example. You have to lead by example. You have to be willing to do everything that everybody else does. You have to be a servant leader. So those are the kinds of things that they'll ask you. These are all dispositional things. Now, we'll talk later about when they ask you that the drop-dead question in the face-to-face, but those are the kinds of things. So make sure that you've covered that Strength Finder book. They're trying to figure out your personal strengths. And they've got to be disciplined, on time, approachable, want to work with adults, don't complain about adult problems. That's the job, is adult problems when you get to be an administrator. So that's a dispositional type interview that they'll do with you for an applicant pool. Changing gears quickly, they may have you do a reasoning activity like the principal's in basket. If I can get this to go here we go. This is where they give you some scenarios and make you work through them. Many of them are legal. Many of them are policy. The one that you got to make sure that you get right is one about media and access to kids. So they'll kind of convolute it for you. So let me see. Here's one. This is number 2. It's early on, so they won't have to look through all of them. If you get this one wrong, they'll just throw it out to begin with. To Dr. Brown, the newspaper would like to do a feature on you as the new assistant or principal or new principal, and I need to set up a time for interviewing you and some of the teachers and students. See, they've appealed to your ego already. You're brand new, the newspaper, the local media. Oh, boy. The answer to that is no. You would forward this email to your public information office. You're supposed to know. You never address the media, and you never let media talk to teachers, and you never let them talk or video kids. You notice when something happens at a school, they're always talking to parents. The parents are in their car, and they're showing a picture of the school. That's because they're across the street. They're not allowed on school property. And so these are reasoning activities that they have for you. All of these are fairly simple. And then they have one last gotcha at the end. They ask you to rate all these scenarios in one of these 4 quadrants. urgent, important. This email was not urgent, but it was important. It was urgent, but it was not important. And it was not urgent and not important. They're only going to look for one of these quadrants, quadrant number 3. If you have anything in number 3, you're out. There's no way that anything can be urgent but not important. So if you put something in the urgent, not important category, that's the end of you. It's a simple reasoning activity. It'll be a basic test of policy like no media, a couple on law, like FERPA, talking to parents about other people's kids. Can't do things like that. It's going to be the basic stuff mostly that we've covered in the case studies in 603. No, it's just general knowledge kinds of things. So they'll give you one of these. But again, if you put one in this quadrant, or if you get one of the policy questions wrong, then you'll be out. The third type of applicant pool is the virtual interview. They give you some scenarios like this. The trick with virtual interviews, and I have that one as well. Virtual interview questions are going to be some general questions. The main thing is they'll ask you the same kinds of questions that they would ask you for the Gallup interview, but they're looking to see that your answer without reading notes. So if you want some notes, put them on stickies around the outside edge of your laptop so it doesn't look like you're reading. So if you want to remind yourself. But basically, the virtual interview, sometimes they will do the Gallup interview virtually, but they're looking that you're going to be watching them and interacting with them. And they'll ask you some of those landmine questions like, if there was a system policy that you didn't agree with, would you enforce it? And the answer, of course, is yes, I would. You can't say, nah, I'm just pick and choose the things I want to do. Then you'll never get a job. It goes back to just like the in-basket activity. Would you follow the policy, or would you do the interview to get the publicity? No, you'd follow the policy, forward the email to public information, and not respond to it. So the virtual one is basically the Gallup, kind of a combination of the Gallup and the reasoning activity all rolled into one. And sometimes they even give you data in this one. But the main thing is can you do this without reading notes, without references? They want to see how you can think and on your feet kind of thing. So the virtual interview is a combination of the perceiver interview and the reasoning activity, but it's done live to put you on the spot even more. So that's the virtual interview. And then the last, of course, is the data mining interview, where they give you data, and sometimes they give it to you in this format. It's online. Let me show you that one right quick, where they will give you a scenario, a data analysis performance task to have to do, and they'll give you some school data like this and give you a little background, and then you have to put together an action plan, just like you did in the app cell. The very first evidence that you did, they'll basically do that to you. You'll look at they'll give you a data set of your standardized test score data or something, demographic data for your school, and have you do a quick action plan. And you know how to do that. But make sure you have specific activities, formative, summative assessment, persons responsible, any resources needed, what your goal is, how far you want to move, and then your indicator of success, which is this year's steps. Your goal could be we want to make up 20 points in reading, but we can't make up 20 points in 1 year. This year we'd like to make up 3 or 4 or 5. Don't ever go more than 5 points. 5 points is 1 standard deviation. So you never want to try to move more than 5 points in 1 year. So that's the data analysis piece. Sometimes they roll all 3 of these. This one that I just showed you, they absolutely did that. That's from Charlotte Mecklenburg. They rolled all 3 into the virtual. They did the data analysis. You had to do the in-basket, that reasoning activities, and you had Gallup questions, all rolled into one virtual interview. And you may have them separately. You may, in bigger districts, they may put all 3 of them together into one virtual interview. So that's the first level. You got to get through that. And all the answers are standard. I'm on time. I'm responsible. You know, I'm a full-fledged adult. My dispositional behaviors are good. I'm the same today as I am tomorrow. I'm responsible. I'm ethical. I'm moral. I'll follow the rules. I'll be on time. I'll show up sober and clean clothes. That's what they're looking for at that first level. And you'd be amazed at how many people don't answer correctly. And I had people come and interview. When I was high school principal, I never will forget. I had a person that came and said, I'm not really a morning person. We were early start high school. We started at 6:45 every morning. Students were on campus at 6:20. We started at 6:45. And I had a person that came and interviewed for an AP job and said, well, I'm not really a morning person, and I work the second shift. Not for me, because you got to work the first shift first. We all work first and second. Can we do flex time? No, we can't do flex time. We start every morning, and we end it, we go from 6:20 to 11 o'clock at night. I expect you to be here. That's the way it works. So that's the first level of interviews. Now, if you get through that one and get a call back, more than likely they're going to do the group interview with you next. Let me close that one, and I'll close the virtual interview. They'll do a group interview with stakeholders. This one is kind of optional. This one is they have you interviewing with lay people. And what they're trying to determine is, can you communicate with parents and community members without using school jargon that they don't understand and confuse them? I actually set up and ran a principal of the year for a school district, and one of the candidates came in and no less than 6 times did he say to the person who was at, well, you wouldn't understand that. Using acronyms, EVOS, MTSS, RTI, PBIS, all the acronyms that we use. You've got to figure out ways, PLCs. You've got to figure out ways to answer questions that lay people ask you, parents and community members, that don't require you to use, or you work your way around all the jargon you've learned over the years in the business and in this program. So when they ask you to briefly describe what you perceive as your leadership style, they're not looking for you to say transformational. What they're looking for you to say is the things that make up transformational, and here they are. Positive, approachable, responds in a timely manner, courteous, child-centered. These are the kinds of things. So I have the most common questions you'll be asked by these parent and community groups. Assessment-driven instruction. We often hear that assessment drives instruction. How would you help a new teacher begin to understand? And so data analysis, development of teaching strategies based on willingness to plan collaboratively. Instead of saying I'd form PLCs, they don't know what a PLC is. You would explain what you do in a PLC. And as we all know, you plan collaboratively, you do data analysis, and you develop teaching strategies. This is the quick and dirty 3-bullet on what a PLC does. But if you just tell them I'd form PLCs, they have no clue. So you have to, I don't want to even use the term. You are modifying what you know professionally to a language that they understand. That's what you've got to do in that group interview. Best practices, so they ask you, when you walk through the building, what do you want to see? Instead of saying Richard DeFore or instead of saying 9 high yield strategy from Robert Marzano, they don't know Marzano is best practices. They don't understand McReal. Effective use of resources, engagement, and best practices. That's high yield strategies. They don't know what they are. So make sure you look at this document. Teacher comes and she's upset. She blames the children for their lack of effort. This is the definition of EVOS. That accountable for having high expectations. Need to be aware of students' past progress and potential. These kinds of things that EVOS takes into account. They don't know what EVOS is, so you have to explain it to them. So that's the next level of interviewing that you get to, is the group interview that has lay people on it. Now, some of those lay people, although they may not be in the profession, some of them are very well educated. They're well schooled, but it won't insult them if you talk so that everybody in the room understands what you're talking about. But make sure you understand, know who the people are in the room when you do the group interview, and don't use too many acronyms or too much jargon. Explain things in terms that they understand. Review this document if you don't know. All right. Now, finally, you're going to get to go and interview with the principal. And you're going to get to use every bit of jargon that you've ever learned. You're going to get to show how smart you are. And they're going to ask you some little softball questions. You know, what are your goals, your work experience? They'll ask you some pretty easy questions. Discipline, we'll follow the code of conduct, we'll do due process, yada, yada, yada. And they'll get you feeling comfortable and confident. And then they're going to ask you the knockout question. That's the one. This is the one that you have to be paying attention, because it's going to come. They're going to slip it in just when you don't expect it. When you think, man, I'm doing so good, you know, my future's so bright, I've got to wear shades. About that time, they're going to throw you they're going to give you the question that knocks everybody out at this level. What are your strengths and weaknesses? And you better be able to answer this correctly on both ends. All right. Always, your strengths are dispositional. They're things that are endemic to you. I'm on time. I'm honest. I'm ethical. I'm hardworking. You know, I'm dependable. All those things, all those positive character traits from Strength Finder and from ethical concern, you know, the 4 paradigms of ethic, the ethic of profession. Make sure remember those, but that you're a quality person that can be trusted to be in charge of something. That's your strengths. Don't talk about your technical skills. Talk about who you are as a person. If you just list technical skills as your strength, they won't hire you. They're looking to project you down the road into more than an assistant principal. They're looking for you to be somebody that can take a leadership role, not just be a technician. Now, on your weaknesses always have to be things that are based on inexperience. Let me say that again. Your weaknesses have to be based. Don't say I don't have any. You know, you'll be smug at home without a job. Your weaknesses are based on inexperience. Know what you don't know. Understand that you haven't seen Power School from the administrative side. You haven't been in all the different portals, which are much more involved than the teacher portal. You haven't been in all those sections. But make it clear, I know what I don't know. You know, my weaknesses are I haven't been trained in teacher evaluation in your district yet, but I will go get that done immediately. I've not been trained in data entry, in disciplinary data entry in Power School yet, but that'll be first things first. I know what I don't know and what I've got to get certified in. Those are your weaknesses, things that you can correct, things that can be fixed with experience, and you'll go and work hard to get that done. You realize that the number of evaluations for a school to do, an administrative team to do, doesn't change because they've got a new person that's not certified. Everybody's got to pick up your slack. You go get trained in your district and are certified to do formal observations for that district. You'll get that done before school starts if possible. You understand that they won't quit sending kids to the office for discipline just because you haven't been trained to put those referrals in Power School yet, and they can't just stack up on a desk. They have to be in there within 48 hours if they're just if they're just general referrals for bad behavior. If they're reportable offenses to the police or persistently dangerous ones, they have to be in there in 24 hours. Those won't stop coming just because you haven't been trained yet in power school. And so the UB, unacceptable behavior offenses, you got 48 hours to get them in. You've only got 24 for the PDs and ROs. PD is persistently dangerous. That means it's a violent act. Or RO means it's a violation of the law and has to be reported. And most everything is either a PD or an RO nowadays. That has to go in there. You acknowledge that you got to get trained, but you'll go get it done immediately. So your strengths are dispositional. They won't change. They're who you are. You're a quality person. And your weaknesses have to be things that you can fix on inexperience. If you get that wrong, you'll be out. So that's the principal interview. Now, if you get through that one, most districts now make you interview either with the area superintendent or the superintendent. Most folks will not hire an AP that they can't project into a principalship. You may get some of these same kind of questions in the superintendent interview, but more than likely, you're going to get some big ticket item questions. You're going to get things like, what do you expect your school to look like, And you're going to revert back to 21st century skills at that point. And that's kind of a trap, because the superintendent's going to ask you, well, how are you going to implement those 21st century skills in this school? Aha, I have a document for you here. Study this carefully before you go. 6 steps for implementing 21st century skills in schools. You're probably going to be asked something about 21st century or what you think the future or what you want your school to look like. And of course, everybody knows 21st century, because we're 20 years in now, and everybody knows the rainbow and all that stuff. What people don't know is when they're asked, well, how are you going to implement that? There's a 6-step process for implementation in here. You don't have to memorize them, but you have to understand how it works. Increase awareness, assess your current state, narrowing to a manageable number to start with. We're not going to try to do everything at once. We're going to plan them out, what we're going to do. We're going to make us an action plan. Planning means we're going to develop an action plan, just like we do every time we get to one of our evidences that you've been working on in your portfolio. We either do an action plan, a growth plan, a marketing plan, but they're all variations of an action plan. We'll put a plan together. Who's going to do what, where, when, and why. And then we're going to implement it, and then we're going to assess it. Evaluation and continuing improvement. That's called assessment. So know the steps to implementing them. They're not going to get down in the weeds on each one of them, but what they want to know is you have a vision for where you want school to go, or you're going to help in that vision, and that you understand that leadership without a plan is just dreaming. And so that you're a planner, and that you're a strategic planner that can move people and schools and culture to where they need to be. That's what the superintendent wants to know. And they're also going to know, they're going to ask you this really tough question. What do you expect students to look like when you get through with them? In this ideal school of yours, what are students going to look like? Because he already knows there's a document out there that says what they're supposed to look like. Future ready students. And this is what they're supposed to look like. Every student excels in rigorous and relevant core curriculum. Every student achievement is measured with an assessment system. You need to make sure you understand this one. So these are the big ticket items. When you talk with the superintendent, stay away from political things like Common Core. If they ask you, your answer is our job is to implement whatever the district or the state adopts, that you're not, it's not your job to pass judgment on the curriculum itself. Your job is delivery. And the superintendent may ask you that, what's your, what's really your job? And your job is really instructional delivery. It's not curriculum development, it's curriculum delivery. That's your job. The superintendent in some way will ask you that, what your job is really. And your job really is delivery, not development. There's a big difference. We're looking for people who can deliver what's already been developed. That's your job as a school administrator. Central office people might be involved in development, but not you at the school level. Your job is delivery, to work with teachers to get better all the time, to improve instruction. If you remember back to 603, 115C 288, duties and responsibilities of the principal, it's to improve instruction, to work with teachers to improve instruction, because you're all about delivery, not development. And the superintendent is going to make sure that you understand that before he ever hires you or she ever hires you. They don't want a bunch of ideologues and political people who are always out advocating. That's not you. You understand. My job is, you hand me the curriculum, we go get it. And we'll do the best job we can. So those are the 4 levels. The first is the initial. It may have Gallup in it. It may have reasoning in it. It may have data, and they may put all 3 of them together in a virtual format like they do in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And if you're doing this virtually, make sure you look at the screen. And you don't read from notes. If you need notes, put them around the outside edge of your screen. But don't be seen looking down at your notes or reading from notes. Don't do that. So that's the first one. Second one is group. Again, in the group, make sure that you talk to people, that you understand these aren't all educators. They don't know all the jargon. Speak to them from your heart and speak to them in a way that they understand, that you convey the message that you want to them without using acronyms. Third is the principal. You get to show how smart you are. Don't get caught in that strength and weaknesses trap. Your strengths are endemic. They are dispositional. Your weaknesses are inexperience that can be solved quickly and will be solved quickly. And fourth is superintendent big ideas. Do you have a vision where the school needs to be, what students are going to look like, and do you understand really what your job is deliver instruction, to deliver the curriculum, not design or argue or be involved in political in any way. To work with teachers to improve instruction. That's your job. So now, some general things about interviewing. Close some of this so I can get a little room here. All right. We got those. All right. If you're interviewing with some principals who didn't come through since 2010, they might not be familiar with the task stream portfolio system that gets you your license now rather than taking the ISLIC exam. And they don't know the jargon. They don't understand the acronyms, APSEL, APTEL, those things. It's always good if you take and do a 2-page maximum where you just kind of summarize what you did in each of the 6 evidences. Just summarize what you did. If they don't ask you for it, fine. But if they say, I don't really understand them artifacts. Well, they're not artifacts. They're evidences to begin with. Artifacts are things that you produce. But kind of you can do a quick, the APSEL mirrors the instructional component of the school improvement plan. The APTEL mirrors the staff development component, and so forth. But this is what I did briefly in each of these 6. 2 pages maximum. Also, you can publish and share your competency folio of artifacts that show the work that you did. You can publish and share that with them if they're interested. but I would summarize what the work that I did in the 6 evidence artifacts. I would summarize those. All right. So that's something that I would take with me, because 5 things that you must bring. That's one of the 5. If it'll pop up, there it is. A current resume. Should this be a 2-sheeter with references? Shouldn't be longer than 2. Here's one that I got from a professional one today. It's a 2-sheeter. And this person's been principal for 15 years. But that's the standard with references. Shouldn't be more. See, references shouldn't be more than 2 pages with references. Don't have any gaps in your resume. You might have been in prison for all we know. No gaps. Everywhere you've been since high school, we want to know. Map it out. I had Ray, she asked me, she said, my husband, I followed him around, said, a couple of different stops, I waitressed. Well, nothing wrong with that. That's an honorable profession. And so don't have any gaps that you can't allot for your time, because people can't ask you, but we'll wonder, where were you during that time? So when you first left high school, whether you went in the military or went straight to college, whatever you did, from the time you were 18 is what we want to know on your resume. Where you been ever since then? And make sure you have a cover letter for specific jobs. Doesn't have to be very long. Make sure your references are on there. A strategic plans, sometimes they'll ask you to do that. That's the data analysis kind of thing. Your portfolio should include a link to your competency folio and that 2-pager that I talked about, summary of your evidence artifact. This is standard throughout the business world. These are the things that you need to have. 2-page resume accounts for all your time that you've been an adult. References on it. Your portfolio includes a 2-page summary of evidence artifacts and a link to your artifact competency folio. If you have all those things, and make sure you have a 1-page cover letter, then you can go anywhere and do anything. Now, there's 2 types of different cover letters. One's just a general one for all jobs, and then some people make one specific to the job that they're interviewing for. That's your choice. I have examples of either. All right, so that's what you need to make sure that you have when you go for an interview. All right. All right. 5 questions you should never ask when you go. Things like, how long do people usually have to be AP in this district before they get promoted to principal? Same as, when will I get promoted? Never ask that. That means you're overlooking the current job. You're a job hopper. Sometimes people move jobs, but that's not who we're looking to hire. We want people who are going to focus on doing the best job at this place. Don't talk about salary. Principals don't know anything about your years of experience or what pay grade you're going to be on. If you're interested in the salary, book an appointment with the HR people. But the people that you interview with will know nothing about your salary until you get to HR. When can I expect a raise? Will I get my national? Again, that question goes to HR, because there is some issues about your performance bonuses in some districts. Longevity's been taken away, but they do some performance incentives. Some districts will let you keep your national board pay. Those are all questions for HR. As I told you earlier, there is no flex time. There is no comp time. Those are illegal in a right-to-work state, North and South Carolina, not union states. There is no flex time. There is no comp time. They will not pay you now for work you're going to do later. That's not allowable for you or the people you supervise. So no questions about comp time or flex time. And we'll talk about that in a little more minute. And then the last one is, don't ask questions that shows you haven't been listening. Listen more than you talk in the interview. Answer the question, but listen to what they tell you. Don't ask things that they've already told you. That's never good. So those are things you should never ask in an interview. And then we get to my top 10. These are my pet peeves. Number 10 is my biggest pet peeve. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Here we go. Dress for success. Dress for the job you want, not the one you got. I've told the story a dozen times. I was looking for a new interview. It was a teacher, one of my APs got promoted right before school started, and I had to get a new AP, and they called me up from HR and said, we're sending the man over. I said, great. It was during the teacher work days. They said, he's been working over at his school. He called me up. He said, I'm not, I have a suit and tie on. I said, that's fine. But what he didn't tell me was he wasn't wearing his good wig. He was wearing his bad wig that day. And it was kind of cocked to the side, kind of like kids wear their hat about a 15-degree angle. His bad wig was about a 15-degree angle. That's all I ever remember about that man. And he was probably a pretty good AP. But I couldn't get over the fact that his wig was on crooked. So as you can see, I don't wear one. But if you wear one, wear your good wig and wear it straight. Wear polish your shoes. I recently was at a business and things weren't going too well for them. They were kind of incompetent and couldn't find things and all that. And the fellow said to me, the salesman said, we're usually a lot better than this. We're usually a lot more competent than this. We're usually, more on the, they kept using different metaphors. We're usually on the ball. We usually are better prepared and all these things. And I looked at him finally and said, I don't believe a word of that. And I said, why? I said, look at your shoes. When's the last time you polished your shoes? I said, you don't do any attention to detail. The reasons why y'all are having a bad day is you have no attention to detail. You don't take care of the little stuff, and it becomes the big stuff. That's why you're failing at this. Is you have no professionalism, no attention to detail. That pair of shoes you wearing's never seen polish, and here you are out trying to convince me that you're a competent person, and that this isn't that y'all are just this is an anomaly that you're not providing what you're supposed to. It's just it's a perfect storm. No, I don't figure if you hadn't polished your shoes, you're not too on the ball. So make sure. I don't care if your shoes are old. I don't care if your clothes are not the best. Make sure they're cleaned and pressed. Make sure your shoes have got polish on them. You don't have to be dressed from Hart, Schaffner, and Marks, but you should be clean and pressed. If you don't, I'll loan you $1.50 to have your shirt pressed. I wear don't come in with your shirt just washing. Wear a pressed shirt. Make sure your clothes have been pressed and that they're clean and that your shoes have been polished. You'd think you'd know to tell people this, but people would know this. But I'm amazed at how many people over my career showed up for interviews that this was not the case. Look the part. Look the part. Take your 2-page evidence summary with you. Be able to refer to the different things, the different activities you did in all 6 without reading them. Now, you don't have to go in and say, here, I want to share. If they ask you early on, it'll be early on. They'll say, what about them artifacts? And you can share with them and give them the 2-minute elevator speech, 2 pages, 2 minutes. of the things that you did. Research both the school and the administration. Look at the state report card. Everything that you did in your evidence is when you would look at your school. Do that for every school you go and interview at. So you'll be able to speak to their data. Know the backgrounds of the administrative team. Don't say something dumb like I would, like, say something bad about PE teachers and the principal used to be a PE teacher. Make sure you know their backgrounds. It also helps you kind of figure out whether you can fit in or not, or how you could project to them that you'd fit in with your background. But you know all the data. And you know it doesn't take long to pull up their advanced ed or teacher working condition survey, their report card, all the things that are public. Look at those. Have some idea, because they may ask you to look at their data during an actual live interview and comment on what you think about it. So make sure you don't get hit with that. Know what you don't know, as I told you before. EVOS Power School, know that you haven't been practiced in those and you haven't had a lot of experience, but that you know that, and you're going to get it done immediately. That's your weakness, but you can fix it. You can't fix if you're not on time, if you're not honest, if you're not dependable, you have no attention to detail. Can't fix those things, but you can fix your inexperience. Have a humorous anecdote about how you were able to turn a negative into a positive. Every electronic reference form that I fill out now, and I fill out hundreds, has want to know when the time you were faced with a negative situation and how the applicant turned it around. So have a humorous story about that, about how you turned a negative into a positive, and practice it. Tell it to somebody. It doesn't have to be a knee slapper funny, but it needs to be a light and humorous anecdote. It shouldn't start with, we had a kid get killed in a car wreck. That's not the way to start that. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but don't give us one of those. Give us something that's a little lighter than that. We want where you turned a negative into a positive, and we'd like it to be somewhat humorous if possible. Be prepared to discuss hours and responsibilities honestly. Here's two things I know. Don't know many things. The school won't get any closer to your house just because you got a job there, and the traffic won't get any better. It won't park like the Red Sea for you. I've had people say, well, I drove it on a Sunday evening and I made it in 40 minutes. That didn't sound too bad. On Monday morning, it took 3 hours to get there, and you showed up 2 hours late. That's not going to work. If you can't work evenings, if you've got childcare, if you've got issues like that, then you need to be honest about that. I went to Hickory Grove and to see Aquanetta, and it was in September. I had 6 interns with her. I walked in and I saw the bulletin board of new faculty, and I said, you hired Allison. How's she doing? She said, I've already let her go. I said, dang, Aquanetta, it's not even hog killing weather yet. It's not even cold yet. You've already let her go. She said she took a job here, and she told me that she said she couldn't work past 4 o'clock because of child care issues. We don't even, Hickory Grove is a late start school. They don't even let students out to 4:30. Faculty can't leave till 5. You can't have an assistant principal, at least 4 students do every day. And said she knew that when I hired her. But then waited till she got hired, went through all the process, and then told me, oh, by the way, I have to leave at 4 every day. She said, I told you can leave now. That'll solve this problem. You got to be honest. If you go to a high school, you're going to have to work the second shift. Now, you may not have to work the second shift every day to your principal. Then you have to work the second shift every day. But you're going to have to take your turn working the second shift at a high school. Stay for the afternoon activities into the night. We have another gas crisis, 4 games, 1 site basketball. You don't get out till 1 o'clock in the morning, or football. You don't get out till 1 o'clock in the morning. You're going to have to pull your duty. You're going to have to be, you're going to have to be realistic. If you can't do that, you need to be at an elementary school. If you can't pull your part at a high school, you're not going to, don't go. If you can't be there early in the morning because of child care and it's early start school, don't go. If you can't stay late, it's a late start, don't go. Don't expect them to accommodate you. That's you're part of the leadership now. That's not part of the plan, is for you to go in and have to be accommodated. Know your strengths and weaknesses. We've already talked about that. Strengths are dispositional, weaknesses are inexperience. Don't discuss salary, experience step, national board pay. Don't do any of that. Those people don't know the first thing about it. Don't engage in gossip or negative talk. You know, principals go to meetings several times a month. They all know one another. If you do that, it'll get back to them before you get home. And then number 10, coming in right on time here with 5 minutes left to go. My number one all-time pet peeve. Do not interview for a job that you wouldn't take just for the experience. This is a waste of the interview's time and word will spread. I was principal at some pretty rough places across the world. My job is not to give you experience interviewing so that you can go to a better place and get a job. I've had people say that to me. Oh, I wouldn't work here. I just came to the interview so I'd know what the questions were. So when I went to the place where I actually wanted to work, I'd know the answer to the questions. Well, I can fix the problem here, and I can call that school and fix the problem there. The people that are interviewing, they're serious about this. Their career is on the line with these hires. You can help them, or you can be a detriment to them. They want to do better for kids, but they want their careers to go forward, and you can help them in that. They're not there to just get you experience so you can interview somewhere else. That's insulting. So if you know that you wouldn't work there, don't go. Do not go. If you know it's too far from my house, I'm not working those hours, I can't get through the traffic, I've got child care issues, I've got all these other things, but do not go for the interview. Respectfully decline. Do not go and waste people's time. That's the most important thing that administrators have, because most of us, especially in secondary, work 100 hours a week. And then you come in and I'm taking this time for you, and you come in and waste my time and wouldn't work here. Oh no. That's not their job to get you experience interviewing. That's if you're prepared, you don't need experience interviewing if you're prepared. If you know what you're doing, if you know what kind of interview you're walking into and you're prepared, that's all you need. They can't ask you anything that you don't know. You know what they're going to ask you. You're prepared. You've been through this program. You know what the questions are better than they do, and you know the answers better than they do. So do not walk into a school that you wouldn't work at for whatever reason, just to try to get a leg up on the competition at the next interview. You won't do well, and they won't be happy. There needs to be some skin in the game. That makes you a whole lot better if you actually want the job. But if you walk into an interview at a place that you don't want to work, you won't have to tell people that. They'll know, and it won't go well. So that's my 10. Now, I've got 2 minutes left, right on time. You're going to get this job. I'm quite sure of it. And here are the things that you need to do by the first faculty meeting to make sure that you're going to be successful. Know everybody's name and what they do. Memorize them. Get an annual if you have to. Spend some time doing it. Know everybody's name. Move around the room, barring that if you can't do it, and have them introduce themselves to you. Proximity and eye contact are important. I was world famous for being able to memorize every faculty member's name at every new school that I went to for the first faculty meeting. Did it with 250 at a 3,000 student high school. You know how I did it? I worked at it. It was important. I stayed up all night, several nights, memorized every one of them, what they did. If you can do that, it's incredible the power that has. It's incredible how powerful that is. Need an early win. Present something positive to the staff. You don't need losses early. Don't pick something big and hairy and scary. Get an early win on something easy. establish that it's not luck that you're doing well. If you have 2 or 3 losses to start with, people determine that you're an incompetent person. And even if you have victories after that, that's just blind hog finds an acorn every once in a while. Get an early win. Give the staff a quick overview of who you are and your professional experience and move on. Do not dwell on where you used to be and what you used to do. They don't care. They only care about who you are now and what you can do for them now. Volunteer to do something nobody else wants to do. Lend a hand. Be a servant leader. If you can, if the principal lets you, present the opening of the school plan and be conversant with that plan, that you're already a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Please remember, you're only new to lunchtime the first day. After that, you're one of them or you're not. You can't say, well, in December, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm new if they hired you in August. You get to be new till lunchtime the first day. After that, that's no excuse. Be conversant, know what's going on. Smile and laugh at the appropriate times. You don't just be dead serious all the time. If it's at the appropriate time, show a little personality. Ask questions and take notes. Recognize someone for something positive you've seen. Be specific. My recognition tonight, I hope if she's still with us, is I got a shout out to Dr. Wilson tonight. I got a student reflection back in 605 that called her out for being a great teacher and wonderful person and having a great time in her classes. She learned a lot. Got it today from a student named Lizzie Tucker. I don't know if Lizzie's with us. And so shout out to Dr. Wilson, Dr. Rebecca Wilson tonight. Always make sure you do that every time that you're with your people. Remember something good that they did. Don't complain or seem worried about being ready for the opening of school. The kids are going to show up the first day whether you're ready or not. And if you panic and wet your pants, that's all anybody will ever remember about you, is that you couldn't hold your water when it mattered. Don't have no faith or confidence in you. Be confident. They're going to come. You'll be ready. It'll be okay. And then last but not least, my pet peeve, don't tell everybody how busy you are and how hard you're working. That's what they're paying you for. They pay you more. They expect you to work harder than everybody else and be busier. Don't whine about it. Get your job done and go on about your business. No crying in school administration. No whining. People expect you to work hard. They're paying you more. You don't do the work of the organization anymore, which is teach kids. That's our core competency, is teaching kids. What they do at Jones Sausage, they make sausage. What we do in school, we teach kids. That's our core competency. You don't do that anymore once you move into administration. They expect you to work harder because you're supposed to facilitate the people who do the real work of the organization, which is teach kids. Now, you have all these materials. You've had the training. You've had the experience. Know what you're walking into. You should be confident. They're not going to ask you anything you can't answer. And you should do well. Our folks do extremely well. We had another one got a job today. If you need letters of recommendation from me, I'll be more than glad to write those. Just have to email me. I have a pretty short turnaround time. I'll get you a letter of reference. If you need something about program completion, that's Seth Opry. His email is SOPREA, or you can email it to me and I'll send it to Seth. If you need a letter about program completion, if you're thinking about hiring you, he provides those. I do the reference letters that says that you're a quality person and they ought to hire you. But know what kind of interview you're getting into. Understand it has multiple steps and layers. You won't go just one time and then they offer you the job. And because they call you back for multiples, that's not a bad thing. I get students who say, well, I went, they called me. That's good. They called you for the next level. There are different levels of interviews, different people involved. They want to make sure they get the right person and don't make a mistake. And that goes back to my final point again. Don't interview for a job that you wouldn't take. They're trying to make an emotional connection with you to see if a match is there. They're putting themselves out to interview you. That you would come in and do that is disingenuous. And it won't endear you to anybody else. So make sure you don't do that. All right. That's all I've got. Good luck to you all. Again, fill out your SOIs, do your senior exit, and the final reflection. We like that data. We use that data. I make decisions on that data. I share that data with faculty. We all want to get better and do a better job for you. So take the time and fill those things out. It doesn't take long. That data means a lot to us. It helps us to provide better experience for you folks. I appreciate all of you. I thank of you. Those that I've had in class, I've enjoyed it. I appreciate that you chose Gardner Webb. I pray that you will get the job that you want. I know that you deserve it. I pray that you'll get the job that you want and that you'll do a good job for children. Because in the end, that's what we're in this business for. I'll see you all next time. Hopefully, we'll see you August 3rd. Those of you who are graduating will participate in the ceremony. You have the information. Those of you who had on licensure, you're invited to the reception immediately following at 11:30 at Tucker Center. So please join us if you can. We'll have light refreshments and light hors d'oeuvres, and I will have your certificate. So for those of you who are certificate completers, I already have them in my possession, and they've already been signed. So this is what you're going to get from Johnston's, a very nice frameable certificate. We will have these on site, and if you don't come, we'll mail them to you the week after graduation. So we'd love to see you on Saturday, August the 3rd, 10 o'clock graduation, 11:30 reception at Tucker Student Center. Everybody have a good evening, and I'll see you next time.
Dr. Lamb, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Albert, I can hear you.
As far as the survey, I was heard that you sent those out. Did we get that in the email?
What kind of survey? The student instruction, senior exit, or the
exit?
Senior exit. That came from institutional effectiveness.
Okay.
Either Dr. Jeff Tubbs or Dr. Lucas. What's Lucas's last name? Oh, if you hadn't asked me, I could have told you. They send those out. We don't. The only one that we do is the final reflection, and we do it through your 605 class.
Okay.
So, but yes, be looking for those from Gardner Webb.
All right.
All righty. Good evening.